Welcome to the International Teacher Podcast with your host, Kent the Cat Guy, Jacqueline from JP Mint Consulting, Darian the Family Guy, and Greg the Single Guy, bringing you episodes from around the world about the best-kept secret in teaching. You got it, international education. Welcome to the show.
Welcome, everyone, to the International Teacher Podcast. I'm Jacqueline from JP Mint Consulting, and I'm here with Greg, the Single Guy. Hey, Greg, what's your nickname today?
Well, it is May the 4th as we record this, so May the 4th be with you all.
Ah, yes, Star Trek, live long and prosper. That's right, eh?
We're going to maybe have to cut that out, like edit, because that's not even Star Trek. This is Star Wars, JP.
Okay. And today I'm very excited to say we have a return guest, Greg. We have Noah Spaulding calling in from Pakistan, and he was on episode 12. Woo! We love returning guests.
Yeah. Hello.
Noah, so you were on with the OG, I think, Greg. And Greg, can you tell us a little bit about episode 12? Was that also Matt the Family Guy was in there?
No, it's just Noah and I were just shooting the breeze because back then it was just sort of like he was Family Guy and he had things and we couldn't get things organized. And even back then, I think, Noah, we just sort of like did it early morning or something. I mean, I was just doing podcasts whenever we could. Right? Whenever we got a guest, we'd be like, oh boy, we got a guest at Noah. Oh, yeah. Noah, because Noah and I know each other from way back when.
Ooh. And I think for me, what I remember was just shooting the breeze with you, just catching up on, old times and talking about how quickly the time has gone and where we've been and things like that. So it was a good time. I remember that.
Well, that was 4 years ago, Noah, so we need to refresh our listeners on some of your story, and I'll let JP sort of organize that a little bit with you, and I'll just chime in with some jokes or something like that and wait for Kent to show up.
All right. So, Noah, can you tell us a little bit about your international journey, where you came from and where you are now?
Sure. I had to write things down just because my memory is not so good anymore sometimes, but I started off in Honduras. I taught for 8 years in Honduras, 3 years at a main international school, and then 5 years on top of a mountain at a Canadian, like a one building schoolhouse. And then 6 years in Qatar, 2 years in China, and my wife and I are finishing up our 8th year here in Pakistan.
Wow. So you went South America, Asia, and then Asia, but Western Asia sort of thing. Excellent.
Yeah.
And for our listeners that are the linguists, where is this accent coming from?
I am originally from Radford, Virginia, so it's a bit of a Southern accent. That's for sure.
Okay. I wanted to guess, but I thought, no, don't guess because you could be completely wrong. But I was thinking Southern United States somewhere, but Virginia, I feel like Virginia is kind of it's in the middle, isn't it? Along the coast, Maryland, Virginia.
It definitely could go either way because like Northern Virginia is primarily people, that have come in, professionals that have come in. Northern Virginia is they wouldn't want to consider them Southerners. Whereas, growing up in Southwest Virginia, I was around my friends were a lot of like deep root Southerners. And I think that's where I got my Southern accent. The rest of my family does not have it actually at all.
Oh,
so I was just fortunate enough. And it's funny enough, I was in a kindergarten class in Sri Lanka just last week, visiting a kindergarten class because my football team, we went for a tournament and we were in a kindergarten class and a kid from Tennessee recognized my Southern accent and he thought I was from Tennessee. So it was a bonding moment because we were neighbors.
A little taste
of home. So you took kindergartners on a football tour and visited Sri Lanka. That's amazing, Noah. And by the way, you need to really pardon, JP Mint because Jacqueline has no idea. This is like the United States is like just south of Canada.
wait
she
a
lives in
minute.
Mexico, which is like
Virginia,
south
I'll
of
have you know, like Noah said, Northern Virginia is just south of Washington, D.C. You would never say Washington, D.C. is in the South. So that's
Right.
why it really
Oh, you
is.
do know about
Oh,
USA.
I do. I know all about U.S. geography. Noah, can you tell us how did you learn about international teaching and even start to think about go to Honduras?
Yeah, it's one of those secrets, right? I was teaching in Virginia, and I taught 6 years in Virginia. And basically, what happened was I met my future wife here, and she was busy. She had gone to college in the United States. She's from Honduras, and she was working, about to get her visa, and we started dating, and it got serious. And I said, well, let's let's go to Honduras. I'd like to meet your family, and I'd like to learn to speak Spanish, and are there any schools I could teach English at? It's basically, and she was like, yeah. And so next thing I know, I contacted the international school in San Pedro Sula, and I was offered a contract like 2 weeks later, I think.
Oh, wow.
And so once I got there, I actually, when I went to the Canadian mine, I switched after 3 years. I got hired at that Canadian mine school. They really wanted me to eventually be the principal at the school. So, and that's what I did. And they sent me to Lehigh University for the principal accreditation. And I met teachers from all over the world. And and once you learn about teachers who, and also teachers who had done it as like a total career move, right? Who they never intended to go back to their home countries. Because a lot of people, when they come down to Honduras, they only want to do it for like 2 years. Then they go back, but I met people that this was their career. And so I was interested, and next thing I know, I asked my wife, would you like to go to Qatar? And she said, where's that? And I said, it's in the Middle East. And so my wife and 2 kids, we took them to,
Greg only has phone calls when we're recording.
Another phone call.
Yeah.
So wait a second, Noah. You said you worked in Honduras, and we talked about this before, but I forgot that it was a mime school. I mean, that's why I'm miming out the video here. Because it's a mime school. That's amazing. How did you speak Spanish miming?
Why is he doing that? Mine.
What?
As in mining minerals, I presume.
Oh, minerals. Mine with an N. I thought you said mime, like a mime school. I was like, I've never met anybody who's been a principal at a mime school before.
It's that Southern accent again, I think. It's
yeah, that's right. Southwestern Virginia with a little bit of Chinese and Arabic.
You've been up at El Mochito, Greg, right? With the D&D group. Yeah. So yeah, that's
so
where.
What are they mining? Is it gold, minerals, diamonds?
It's at the time it was, I want to say, I probably get this wrong, but I believe at the time it was zinc primarily, but I could be wrong about that. I know it's changed a lot. It's changed to ownership. I think now a Swedish company owns it. So I was just there the last summer, actually. We went up to walk around but yeah, no, it's not owned by the same company.
And so just to clarify, this was a school for the children of the engineers. The engineers were Canadian at the time, and they wanted to have an English medium school for their kids.
It was for the certain level. I don't know what level it was. We had quite a few, but it was not more than just Canadians. We had, we had kids from Mexico. We had kids from Peru. We had kids from obviously Canada, both the English speaking and the French speaking, because we had some Quebecois that didn't speak much English. And so, yeah, it was a really interesting experience. I was a classroom teacher, like I had a 4th and 5th grade classroom, I believe.
Combined, yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes those smaller schools, especially the ones that are like private companies, I'm thinking Shell, for example, has a number of schools around the world, and it's a pop-up school, but then longevity, if the mine or whatever they're producing keeps producing, and they keep having the foreign workers come in, the schools stay open. So then how did you learn about Qatar? How did you know like there was, well, you said Lehigh University, but how did you get that job? Did you go to a job fair?
No, that actually was through Thai Online. It was thought Thai Online, but what was really cool was it's Thai Online, and so I applied, and I actually was able to contact a friend of mine that I met through Lehigh, who didn't teach at that school, but he taught it was through Qatar Foundation, right? So there's a bunch of schools. And so I contacted him and got the lay of the land. And basically he said, it's a reputable organization. These are the things that they provide, I had a non-teaching spouse and 2 kids. So I didn't have a lot of offers. I did not have a lot of offers.
And you still do have a spouse and 2 kids with you.
Well,
but she's teaching now.
But I eventually convinced my wife so she actually she started off as a librarian. She got her master's in library media sciences, and then now she teaches Spanish, and she's the DP coordinator. So she's actually gone way above of me as far as like towards the admin.
She's now the one that has the trailing spouse and the 2 kids.
she's got the clown who teaches middle school math and has fun with his kids, and nice. And my daughter's in college in the U.S. and my son is about to graduate, and that's why my wife and I want to go on our own adventure, just because both kids will be in college.
So you headed off to Qatar. Qatar. Some people say Qatar, and you brought the family with you. So the 2 kids get into the same school as you.
No.
Okay. There.
We actually, because through Qatar Foundation, I was teaching at the time it was called the Learning Center. It was like a special needs school. It's changed names since then. So my kids at the time were going to, my daughter was going to Qatar Academy, which is next door. My wife wasn't teaching yet. And then eventually my wife started teaching, being a librarian at ACS Doha, which was a new school. Which
American
was
Community School, yeah.
It actually does. It doesn't. They don't. They did. It's just called ACS Doha. It's really weird.
Oh,
yeah.
See for comedy.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so then, so they were going to that school, and then my wife actually came over to the school I was teaching at, but the kids were still going to ACS Doha, and then we left after 6 years.
And just to clarify, the Qatar Foundation was paying the tuition for your children. That was part of the benefits package.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because otherwise it could be very hard to scrape by with a salary, and then international education is really expensive. So,
oh my goodness.
Okay,
yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned you headed off to China. How did you learn about that opening?
Now that was at a job fair. So we did go to Bangkok, and I think it was, we were registered through Search and ISS. And I had this great plan to go to both fairs, to go to the Bangkok Search Fair and then the ISS fair. But I'm sure you all are aware of this. You go through one of those fairs and it is exhausting. And so we went through that first fair, and we had an offer at the end of the fair, and we took it because we couldn't see ourselves going through another fair. So we went off to China for 2 years.
And was that in Shanghai, Beijing?
That was in the south. It's called, it's between Guangzhou and Shenzhen. It's a city called Dongguan.
Dongguan. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I always I lived in Guangzhou for a little bit, and never hit Dongguan, but I would go to Shenzhen for fun because it was like sort of the technology city. So
yeah. We really it was 2 years, but we really had we had a great experience. The kids really loved it. And it was we've just been very fortunate wherever we've been. It's been really worthwhile.
And then Pakistan came calling. And how did you learn about? It's one of the top schools in the world, Greg, International School of Islamabad. It was high on my list as well. I interviewed for a position there. It's always been a dream. And here's the phone again.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
But that was interesting because I was applying. We were busy looking for a job, and my wife, even though she's certified in the United States, she's not a U.S. citizen, and so there were a few schools that were interested initially, but when they found out she wasn't a U.S. citizen, they quickly were like, "No, we really not interested because she's not a U.S. citizen," which I was sort of perplexed by, and so when I saw the positions at ISOI, and I believe that was, I don't know if it was search, I think it was ISS, but when I applied, I even said, just to let you know, my wife is not a U.S. citizen, and Rose contacted me directly, and the director contacted me and said, you should still apply, and we applied, and it just went really well, and had a great interview, and have been here ever since for, this is our 8th year, and have just loved every minute of it. Yeah.
Rose Puffer. I met Rose in Qatar at a leadership conference. We sat together for, I think it was for lunch. I was looking for, I was that geek with the tray and knowing nobody and where am I going to sit with? And then she kind of, come on over here. And so I sat down with all these heads of school, as it turned out. I had no idea. I was trying to get into administration. So I went to the leadership conference. And then we just started chatting, and I found her absolutely fascinating. She has been in Pakistan forever. Can you tell us, how long has Rose been at ISOI?
I believe that she's been here at 30 years or so. I think there was a brief, when she wanted to be an admin, I believe she went off to Saudi for a few years to be an admin, but then she was recruited back to our school. And, I can't say enough about how amazing she is. Just changed my life, changed a lot of people's lives. Just the most humble, nice. I mean, I've had, obviously 8 years at my age, I've had some, family members, my father passed, and so I actually had to travel back to the U.S. on an emergency just to see him before he died. And I've never experienced such empathy and love from Rose and from the entire school, actually. But Rose is just an incredible person. And it seems like every year when we go in and when we have our meeting, because you have a once in the year, when your contract comes up, you sort of talk about, re-signing or whatever. Every year she says her retirement date gets later and later. So
yeah.
I'm not even exactly sure when she's planning on retiring now.
Greg, she's an inspiration for you. Greg keeps saying he's going to get dragged out. He's never leaving the classroom.
Absolutely. I'm staying in this career forever. Not here forever, but I'm going to be at my next school pretty soon. But I tell you what, I do have one favorite story. Maybe I told you this before, Noah. My favorite Pakistan story is in Iowa. And I was at a fair at the UNI fair in Iowa, and it's in the middle of nowhere. Everybody that listening to this, the UNI fair, the Northern, was it University of Northern Iowa, is in Waterloo / another city. It's in the middle of the cornfields in the dead of winter, first weekend of February every year for the last almost 50 years now. And I was standing, I had come from, I was coming from, I can't remember what country I was coming from. And I was sitting in this little itty bitty elevator in the hotel. And I'm talking quietly to somebody. Maybe I was talking loudly, right? Me talking quietly. I don't know, but I'm talking to this one couple, and they're like, and I said, well, where are you going? And they're like, Pakistan. And said, I'm going to Cambodia. And another person behind us chimes in and goes, oh, you're going to Cambodia. Hey, Dave's there. Say hi to Dave for us. And I'm like, what? I'm like, how do you know Dave? They go, oh, we talked with him in Pakistan. So another person, then the person next to me turns around and starts talking about Pakistan. And I'm like, how do you know Dave? It's so funny. It's such a small world. And I always like to say, what is it, JP? What do I say?
7 Degrees of Kevin.
Well, that's one of
Yeah.
it. Also, it's the smallest district in the world, but it's
Oh,
worldwide
yes.
because
Yes.
everybody knows each other. And
Yeah.
the fact that you've been in Pakistan for, you said 8
8
years, right?
years.
8 years.
Can you
Yeah.
imagine? I can imagine what your vast, not just from your other schools, but just from Pakistan. There's so many people go in and out of that great school at different times that they go all parts of the world, and you must have a vast network.
Yeah, I mean, it is amazing. It's amazing to me how small it is because, and you know, with all these school trips I go on, actually, I meet in CISA schools. You know, CISA schools are incredible schools. You know, we're talking
What's a
about
CISA school?
CISA is South Asia International School Association. We used to be part of it at TASM, CISA.
Yeah, you still are. We compete against TASM, and it's and it's just great. And I'm a talker too, so I talk. I meet people and I talk to them about where they've been and where they're going, and I think teachers sort of need to remember how small the district is because they sometimes they feel like they can burn bridges, and boy, those bridges will come back to get you if you're not careful.
So you mean CISA is one of the it's for our listeners. I'm just going to explain a little bit. It's a regional area of schools that are together to compete in things like in kind of conference type of stuff that we would do in a district in the States or in a state in the States or in Canada, where it's regional. So you have schools from that part of the world that meet together and compete. Go to MUN, go to sports, go to, I don't know, there's lots of things, even language.
Yeah, sometimes arts.
Lots of things, right?
Yeah, like choir festivals.
I could just see you talking to everybody at one of those things. And you were just and tell us a little bit about it. You were just recently, like you said, you were just recently in Sri Lanka, right?
Yeah. So this school year, I took 6 trips this school year.
What?
Holy cow.
So I was in girls varsity. I was assistant coach at girls varsity volleyball. We went to Sri Lanka. I was assistant coach at boys basketball. We went to Doha. I went to Nisa. In Greece.
Near East, South Asia.
Yeah.
That's professional development, like conferences, workshops. Okay.
Right. And then I went to Sri Lanka just now.
What was that for?
I was assistant coach of boys soccer.
Oh, sorry.
Right.
Okay.
So
and then contest or something.
And then the other one was the other one was a personal one. The other one, maybe it was just 5. Maybe it was just 5 because the other one was for Christmas break. We went to Spain, and that was just personal.
Just 5 international school trips with kids. I mean, boy, just 5.
Do you also do Week Without Walls internationally?
They do, but it's not Week Without Walls. We do like a IB Group 4 trip, but I did not go to that. That was in Sri Lanka. That was in Sri Lanka as well. They went to Sri Lanka this year, but I did not go. So yeah. It was a crazy year.
So yeah, that to tell our listeners, there is ample opportunity to see the world, even just through the international opportunities like Week Without Walls or coaching, or if you're in the arts, you're the band director, you're going to go travel with your kids to honor band or something like that. So and the great thing is it's paid for. So you don't necessarily need to plan it all because it comes sort of prepacked and planned.
Right.
You have to commit a lot to it, right? You have to commit a lot of time to it.
Yeah. No, I mean, my daughter's she just finished her junior year of college, and my son's a junior in high school, and I've told them both. I said, I know that teaching may not be what you want to do, but I said it really would be a good idea to get that as a base, as a teaching certificate as an undergrad, because you never know how many people have we met that have gone back to teaching just after they've gone on and tried to do something else. And it's and who doesn't benefit from learning how to teach something, even if you're even if you're interested in architecture or business, if you actually have a major where you actually have to teach something, you really learn it and can appreciate it. And so my daughter is getting certified as a elementary school teacher. My son's talking about getting certified in math. So we'll see what happens with that. But no, I'm just feel very grateful for the experiences I've had and the career I've had, and just been incredible. It's been absolutely incredible.
Let's talk about your children. So they were born in Honduras, and they grew up as third culture kids, these TCKs that are part American, part Honduras, and then part whatever country you live in at the time.
Yeah, they exactly. They were born in Honduras, both of them. We we got the U.S. National born abroad. Thank goodness we got it then, because I don't know if they're still giving them out. We got it then, and so they're U.S. citizens with U.S. passports, and they grew up in after that in Qatar and then in China. My son learned to speak some Chinese. He actually was our negotiator at markets when he was little. He would negotiate prices for us. And then here in Pakistan, everyone here in Pakistan speaks English pretty much, and so we haven't learned the local language. But and my daughter. Urdu, that's right. Yeah. And my daughter actually went semester abroad in Guatemala last year, and so she's fluent in Spanish. And so my son's taking Spanish now with my wife, his mother. In school right
sometimes
now.
That happens too. When you have a small school, you end up teaching your children. So mom is her Spanish teacher.
His Spanish teacher. I actually taught my daughter 1 year, 8th grade math. And then I had my son for all 3, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade math. Yeah.
He must be sick of you.
The son wasn't so bad, but I have so many stories about my daughter in my math class.
What do they call you? Because that's got to be weird. Like, they want to put up their hand, and then do they say Mr. Spaulding? Do they say, Dad, I have a question?
They said Dad. They said Dad. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it wasn't an issue. It was pretty cute.
It is.
A lot of these international schools, the family is really tight, and they know that teachers have their families with them a lot of times if they do have kids or a wife. And I think that's a natural story that you might call, they call you dad in class. Mm-hmm. I have so many different colleagues that their kids are in our class. Darian's kids are in my classes, right?
Oh, fine.
And they're like, hey, Greg, how you doing? I'm like, okay. I sort of prefer the Mr. Lemoyne, Mr. Chicken, what they call me. But his kids will flub once in a while, and they'll be like, hey, Greg. It's sort of fun. But in these schools, it depends on the school. It depends on the culture. But that I want to hear some stories about your daughter in your math class. You said you got tons.
Oh, my gosh. But no, and it, for me, I think that's one of the biggest benefits that I've had in my career is just when we were all at the same school, to see my kids just a little bit during the day, just to say hello, or and even today, like between classes, I'll go see my wife, and I'll go just to say hello to my son and talk to him. And it's been great. And we went to prom. My son was at prom, and my wife and I were some of the supervisors, chaperones. So we went, and it's funny because there was someone I know, and she was like, "Oh, you're going to prom, and your son doesn't mind," and he didn't mind, and I just know that when I was a kid, I didn't have that kind of relationship with my parents. Like, I would have been appalled. I would have been. But it's a different type of relationship,
I like it that you brought up prom.
You've raised them up in different cultures.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, different cultures. But this goes hand in hand with your comment, though, JP. There are so many different cultures around the world. We're in these international schools, And teachers that are going into this field, they may not even know, oh my God, there's prom, there's yearbook, there's a homecoming for some schools have homecomings, there's graduations that are going on. Everything that we have in schools back in our home country, be it, a Western, like those of us here, we're Canadian American, any of those events that we have that are a big part of their high school years, especially, even, it might even be kindergarten graduation for some schools, right? So there are those things, those celebrations are all part of a lot of overseas international schools. And we haven't mentioned that a lot, but it's the same as I tell people, I teach in a school just like you have in the States, but it's just somewhere else.
I was making bulletin boards in August, just like every other teacher around the world, making the beautiful bulletin boards, putting up the posters. And so, yeah, we have very regular teaching lives.
And I think that's one of the things too, that people in the United States or wherever they're just, when I say I teach in Pakistan, I always get these look of like they feel sort of sorry for me, or they're like thinking that I'm like, and they think I'm teaching in what language do you teach in? And, what's your school day? And when I was in China, I heard that your school day is until 8:00 in the night, 8 in the morning. It's like, no, actually my day is just like, I could say it was like a school in the United States, just placed in China or placed, and people they're just not aware, especially teachers. You see the teachers on social media, and they're pulling their hair out and they want to quit, and they're leaving the profession. I'll get on there, and every single time I say, you want to teach overseas. If you really want to teach, if you really want to
buy Greg's book.
And listen to ITP.
And see Noah on here. Yes.
Yeah.
I want to reach out to every one of those teachers that's like, I'm going to go into another profession. I've had it. I'm done. This sucks. It's terrible. Yeah. Anybody, especially in the States. And I want to throttle them a little bit. Say, you haven't even heard about this going on. And it's for families. It's for internet. It's for people that are single. It's for newlyweds. It's for single moms. But it's not for everybody, because it's not a vacation. It's a job, and we have to blend in with the culture, et cetera, to a degree, right?
Sure.
Actually, Greg, that brings me to something I read in your book. I can't remember which book. I think it was the first one, the Find the Right Fit. You say, don't go overseas to escape something, because that thing will follow you. So like if you have issues with a relationship, or issues with debts or something like that, credit cards,
exacerbates it, makes it worse.
It's going to follow you.
Right.
But, and then the other thing too, I really liked was something about if you're flexible, because, you won't be getting everything exactly the same as back home. And if you were, how boring would that be? That's why we go overseas, is for the adventure and something new. So it is not for everyone, but I gotta say, it's almost for everybody. Like almost everybody can find something joyful about their day living overseas. If it's the school, if it's the city, if it's the job, so there's all kinds of ways
in my
to find
hometown,
satisfaction.
Man, I tell you what, I have people in my hometown in Green Bay that have never gone beyond Chicago. They don't want to go anywhere else. There are the homebodies, and that's fine. And that's where universities are set up. It's sort of like a machine. You go to university to learn how to be a teacher, and then the teachers are trained to teach in that area, and then all the local schools feed out of the universities. It's a big machine. Right. So why would you go to a different district? What? You're not teaching in our district? And it's crazy, but yeah, I always think about those people. This is the best kept secret. We always say that it is the best kept secret in education, but it's not for everybody. And you have to, we have to weed through the people that are like, it's not a vacation. It's not an escape. It's a job. We do the same thing as that little, Miss Jane Doe that does it in, I don't know, pick a state, pick a part in Canada for an elementary school. And we do the same thing. All right, let's take a moment for a little commercial about how to get in touch with us. You can, of course, find all four of us at the itpexpat.com. That's www.itpexpat.com.
Or you could also find us at email at internationalteacherpodcast@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from you.
Or if you're into Facebook, we have a new Facebook group at www.facebook.com/groups/ITPexpat, where you can find all kinds of inside information about ITP Expat.
You can also find us on Instagram at ITPXpats. That's with an S. ITPXpats is our handle.
All right, and thank you, listeners. We have over 100 countries represented by our listeners, and though we're not monetized, we are here for you, and we would like to thank all of you for listening. So let's get back to the show.
Noah, can you tell us some of the benefits you've seen with your children? So you've raised your kids overseas. I mean, I know we can't figure out what they would have been like if they had grown up completely in the States, but what are some of the benefits you've been able to see?
I often, it's an excellent question. I think about that because of how I grew up, right? Where I grew up in Southwest Virginia, basically I lived all my life in the same town. I went, when I went to a foreign country, I went to Maryland. That was a foreign country for me, and my kids grew up and they've been, I don't know, I think the last count was like 30 countries, I think, like that. So they, from what I've seen from my kids, first of all, they have just experienced so many different cultures and different people from all different cultures and countries, and so they can talk and they have friends from wherever. That does not limit them as far as being able to communicate with someone. I see them being very open-minded towards different. Like for me, I just had never experienced different religions, right? And never in Southwest Virginia, you never see anyone, a Muslim person or a Hindu or whatever. And so they have friends that are Muslims and Hindu and,
and then they learn a little bit about their traditions and understand the commonalities, don't they?
Sure. Absolutely. And so, my daughter's in college and she seems to have gravitated towards individuals that are either their parents are migrants or just it's not she's not migrating towards people that have lived in Virginia their entire lives like I was, and so and in a lot of ways they are it's quite different because like she'll say something like, my daughter will say something like, oh, where are we going next Christmas? What country we're going to go to, so they definitely, the first time I got a passport was when I was 27, I think is when I first got a passport, and so they definitely have had a totally different experience than I have had. I think it's removed any boundaries or any limits for them, For me, I thought I was going to be in Virginia my entire life. And the reason why I'm not there is because my wife, my wife's Honduran and, we fell in love and she is an adventurer. She's always been. So when I say, you want to go to Qatar, she was like, okay, where is that? And she said, absolutely, and so we've haven't stopped,
Well, and let's talk about the quality of education. So your children, have they gone through different systems like U.S. curriculum, IB? Have they done sort of the whole gamut?
Well, we've been here so long that they've we were at IB school here in Pakistan, and ISOI, it's a fantastic, education. And so my daughter started in 8th grade and she's gone through, she graduated and now she's in the in college in the United States, doing really well. And my son started in 4th grade here, and he's gone through the entire time. So yeah, I really have no complaints. It's been for them. I think it's been a very, kids will, because Islamabad and a lot of international schools, I think, it's pretty guarded as far as the kids, like it's pretty, I don't know how you say it, but I feel like in the United States, the kids have more, they have more
Street
freedom.
smarts?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, maybe. But I would say my kids have street smarts as far as traveling, but as far as like the culture of the United States, they don't have the same level of street smarts, right? And so I know that there are kids who will complain how boring international schools are because they don't get to have parties and real crazy parties anyway. And so that is something that I've heard students say, they've been at other really like bigger schools where there was less control, and they say, oh, well, this small school, Islamabad is a very controlled city. It's hard to get out of control here, and so there's been some kids will say, oh, it's boring here. Well, that's not necessarily a bad thing,
Yeah, because there's some safety in the knowledge that kids aren't going to get up to any problems and drugs,
Right.
alcohol, what have you.
Exactly. So, I think, I remember I talked to a student here, and he was like a 10th grader, and he had just come from Dubai, and he was saying how boring it was. And I said, what do you mean? He's like, oh, we used to have these great parties in Dubai, drugs and alcohol. And I was like, oh, brother, that doesn't sound too fun,
Yeah, because their cortex hasn't been fully calibrated to
exactly.
be able to say no. And
Right.
that's scary stuff.
It's like, so it's, I think that it's been a good experience for my whole entire family,
And so what's next? What's on the horizon? You mentioned that your son is now a junior. So next year he's going to be graduating. He's in his last year.
Yeah. I think our 8 years here, the most difficult year that I had, and the most difficult year that my wife had, is that the year that my daughter was gone. That first year, that was very going past a room and her not being there and things like that. And so, when my son graduates, we've talked about this. My wife and I have talked about this a lot, that we really want to go on, move past here and go to a new adventure. So that's the plan. We're going to recruit next year. And when he goes to the States for college, hopefully, that's where we'll be moving on somewhere. We've talked about different regions, and the thing is, you can't pigeonhole yourself, right? You can't, I've met teachers that say, I only want this country, or I only want, and from my experience, that's the worst thing you can do. You sort of just want to be open to whatever opportunities might come about, and then you play it from there. You might have
Question for you.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Would you go back to one of the countries you've already taught in and lived in? Like for me, I won't. What about you?
It's an excellent question. We probably wouldn't go back to Honduras because my wife wouldn't be considered an overseas teacher in Honduras.
Correct. She'd be paid locally.
Right. We've talked about going back to Doha, and we really had loved the Middle East. I've heard though that Doha, like I'm 53. So I've heard that they tend to.
Man, you're old.
Yeah. They tend to.
I think he's right in the middle between the two of us, right, Greg?
Yeah,
You're
'cause
older.
I'm like 30.
I'm younger.
So they tend to go away from older, but I don't know. And then China, I don't think we'd go back to China just because of the current political situation. But again, I'm willing to
Keeping
listen.
options open.
Yeah, absolutely. The worst thing you can do, I think, is just to close off something. I don't think
I have some clients that say
Russia.
this country or bust. Like they
Okay, here we
only
go.
want one country.
Here's my take on it, though. And this is I think it's 7 schools for me, right? And I still think that there's 189 other countries that I can go to and teach in. So I'm sort of closing off, and I'm saying I'm not going back to Cambodia. I'm not going back to Egypt. I'm going to go try some of these. There's so many countries, right? And each of those countries has different cities, but I still don't want to go back to Switzerland and teach Geneva because I was not in Geneva. I don't want to do that. So, but that's me personally. And you're right. I don't want to close any doors, but boy, there's so much more out there. I just sort of like, I want to almost go to like, I don't know, some little tiny country island I've never heard of before and go teach there. I don't know.
They're getting rare, Greg. They're getting rare. As we expand our knowledge of the world, it's those hidden gem schools or countries are kind of shrinking because we actually have heard of them. I mean, I never heard of the place that I loved, Oman, until I moved there or until they contacted me. I never even knew there was a country called Oman in near Dubai. And to this day, when I tell people I lived there for 7 years, they're like, where? And I go, near Dubai. Because they don't know what the country is.
That's what I like about job fairs. You go there and the first thing you do is sort of look at a map to find out, oh my God, here's this listing of schools from all over the world. And you're like, what? What is Timor-Leste? What is that? Where is that? Oh my God. And as you get into this field, we've been to lots of countries. How many countries have you traveled to, Noah? Do you know?
It's over 30. It's over 30 for sure. Yeah.
And JP?
I am 51 or 52.
Oh, she must be stuck.
And you, Greg?
How many countries, JP? I didn't hear.
Oh, 51 or 52.
Oh, wow.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I'm one of those guys. If I lived in the States with a camper, I'd have all of the states colored in. And I like to keep track of Google Maps.
One of my friends got me that map that you scratch with a coin. Yeah.
I want to do that too, but I've been keeping track on Google Maps. You can make your own maps. And I started one. It's like, I think I'm at 71 or 72. But of course, I have some other. Graydon Hazenberg was also on this show too back in 2021. And he's been to like 130, and he's a bicycler, right? And a teacher. And what he does, he teaches for a little bit to make some money so he can take time off to go cycling. And he's been all over the world. It's crazy, I know, but we can do this as in our profession, right?
Right.
I love that.
All I can say is I am a killer Jeopardy player thanks to all the travel because, when they say, what small country? I'm like, oh, I'm sure I know this one.
I'll tell you one quick story too. When we were in Honduras, not in Honduras, but I was in Venezuela, and I was teaching in Puerto La Cruz, and we had a lot of power outages, a lot of water outages. So you'd go for 2 or 3 days without power. Generator might go off, go on. So we're sitting around at a party one night, and all of us that were sitting at the table had been around a couple different countries, and the power went out. And the only thing we could do is maybe look on a phone or something, but we had a candle in the middle of the table. We're sitting on this beautiful balcony overlooking the water. And for some reason, I think I was into Sporkle at the time. And Sporkle is a website, if you haven't gone to it, it's like trivia. It's Sporcle. And Sporkle is one of my favorites because of trivia games. And one of the things that I learned from there is that they have listings, like they'll ask you, name all the countries that start with A. So we didn't have Sporkle at the time. We didn't have anything at the time. We had no power, no internet, nothing. But we sat around the table, and each one of us, we said, okay, let's list see how many we can come up with A. And we'd sit around the table and go through all the country names that started with A and then go to B and C. it was a lot of fun. Make your own party when there's nothing else to do.
Party games.
Have a great conversation, have a few drinks and stuff. But that was a lot of fun. Like you say, there's so much on the geography opens up the longer we stay overseas and we go traveling to these little places.
Yeah. Yeah. I meet people at the U.S. Embassy all the time, and they've been all over, and sometimes they have their kids, they don't have their kids here in Pakistan. It's not a family location, but when they do have their kids, they've been other places, and I'm always able to name the school that they sent their kids to, right? Oh, you sent your kids to ASA in Paraguay, or you went to ISP in Panama, and so they're always, and sometimes I even know teachers at that school, so they're always amazed when I name off a teacher. Oh, you have to look up this teacher. Or I'll send a good word to my friend there and make sure that that they welcome your child, and they always appreciate that.
Noah, tell us what your family thinks. Your family in the States, your wife's family in Honduras, they're back there. They're thinking, what a crazy couple gallivanting all over the world with their kids. How do they feel about your career choice?
They didn't really like it at first. It was, and I kept on saying, we have a contract for 2 years. And it was true. I was not lying. I said, we'll have a contract for 2 years. We'll reevaluate after 2 years. And we've done that every time. We've just renewed every single time. They did, there was some pushback as far as going to China. When Qatar, they came and, my in-laws came and visited, so they saw how nice it was there. There was some pushback going to China. But by the time we decided to go to Pakistan, they pretty much had decided.
They threw their hands in the air and said, "Oh, we can't control them anymore. Where are they going to go next?" Right?
No, I will say that my daughter is very invested in where my wife and I go next, and so she is. When I mention countries, she doesn't want to hear anything that is not close to the United States. She knows we're not going to teach in the U.S., but she definitely would prefer us be close to her. So
Mexico's right down south.
Hey,
she's going to be like,
calling.
Is it really leaving though?
I know. Well, we've one place that I really haven't. We've gone and visited Panama the last 3 summers, and we're going to go again this summer. It's one of my favorite places to go. It's like, I don't know what it is, but and Greg, you were in Honduras, like that kind of, and Mexico for JP Men. I mean, that kind of the people there, the food. It's just such a different kind of lifestyle that we really love, right? But in Honduras, the safety issue was so prevalent. And so when we discovered Panama has that feel, that Latin American feel, and there's just the safety is so, it's just very secure. It's a very secure location. And so to go to Panama every year has just been great for us. And so, it's a place that we've talked about retiring eventually,
It's very popular. Andrew Hallam has been there a few times, the millionaire teacher that's always talking about where to retire in the world. He often touts Panama as one of those places, one of those
if
gems
you see a
for
paper airplane
international teachers.
Flying out of like the 30th floor of one of the condominium complexes, it's probably Andrew. When I got on there with him one time on the show, he's like, "Watch this, Greg." After we got done with the show, he's like, "Watch this," and he takes the airplane and like throws it out the window.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, I agree with you. Panama is a beautiful place to go. When I was there, we were doing the touristy thing and a little bit of diving down in Boca del Toro, but nice. the touristy area around just going to see the Panama Canal. And I can't forget that because it was like the Ukrainian that did the whole tour for us. The tour guide was Ukrainian. The taxi driver was from, Bangladesh or something. Right, it was this, I was like, where am I? This is not Honduras. This is not going down to Tegucigalpa or something. Right. Or going to La Ceiba and getting into a car with just Hondurans all the time.
Yeah, we went back to Honduras last summer, and it was the first time I had been back in like 14 years. We're going again this summer just because, Dora's, my wife's parents are getting older, and we had such a great time, I really
Have a
missed it.
baleada for me. Have a baleada and a few beers.
Absolutely. So
So
yeah.
Noah, in all your travels, I think we're getting close to those two last questions that we like to ask our guests. And I'm not sure if you had these asked of you in the episode 12, they might not have had them. But do you have 3 things you need to take with you other than pets and family members to make home in all these countries you've been?
Again, it's an excellent question. I mean, because we're starting to think about that filtering process.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, as far as, a big thing for me is I enjoy chess, but everything's online nowadays. And so I don't really feel like I need to take any. I actually donate. Every school I've gone to, I get chess sets and I just donate them to the school. So I don't feel like, and I have chess books. And I've made PDF copies, so I have those copies. So I really don't feel like there's anything I need to take. I think that's one of the benefits of international teaching is you don't really get attached to things. It's more the experiences and less.
Except for Jacqueline, she has to carry her rugs with her.
Yeah, like carpets. And that's heavy. I'll tell you that. That's heavy. But carpets, and then I had a lot of framed artwork.
Oh.
But when I got up to 52 frames, I thought, I think I need to go to magnets next. So I collect magnets. They're a lot lighter.
Yeah.
And Greg, you've got our other question?
Well, is there anything else? No, you don't take much with you, huh? Just the kids and the wife, and that's about it, huh? Okay.
No, don't even, we have pets here, but they're going to stay here. So we'll be looking to we'll be looking for them to have homes. Next fall, we'll start looking for them for homes here. So yeah, I don't travel with pets either.
So now we're at the heart of the whole situation here. We love this question. Of course, you've probably heard some on the other episodes. You're a fan of our show, and I love it. You've followed us a long time. Give us some kind of a police or customs story from one of the countries you've been through, or
so my police story, actually the best police story I had, actually let's go there's quite a few, right? But I would say the best custom story I have. This is good because my wife is a take charge kind of person, right? She gets our passports when we travel. She's the one who sort of tells me where to go, basically. So when we were in Jordan, there was a men's line and a women's line, right? So I had to take my son, who was probably like 4 at the time, right? And he was with me. Well, I wasn't used to having my child with me, right? So I go through security, like I'm always worried about that. Go through security, and I go and I'm putting on my shoes and whatever. And my wife's there. She comes, she had to be searched and whatever. And she's there with my daughter. And then she goes, and RJ, my son.
I knew you were going to say that.
He wasn't anywhere. And so
you forgot your child.
I go tearing back through the metal detector. The police jump. You're not allowed to run back through, and he's there. He has his, like all my kids they had to have their own book backpacks and their, so he had a big old backpack on, and he had a luggage thing, and the people were just passing him, right?
He was just standing there.
He was just standing there, not crying, nothing. He wasn't crying. He was just standing there. And I tear back through, and they grab me, and I'm like, that's my son. That's my son. So they bring him through, and then they don't think that that's my son. So they're interviewing him, and they don't want me to talk. Who is this man?
This guy?
Who is this man?
Wow.
He's my dad. Okay, let's go through his bag. So they go through his bag. They can't find, and then they close back up, And I'm walking away with him. He looks up at me and he says, "They didn't find it, Daddy. They didn't find it." And he thought they were going to take his Nintendo DS.
Oh.
You're about ready to be taken into a back room. They didn't find it. They didn't find it, Daddy.
They didn't find it. Oh my gosh. So yeah, that was one. I mean, there's quite a
What
few.
border was that?
That was
coming back.
no, it's
Jordan. In
It was
Jordan
going
Airport?
Yeah, I was in the Jordanian airport. I think we were going on vacation. Yeah.
Did your wife have words with you after that? Like, I can't believe you left our son at the security.
You're still in the doghouse, aren't you?
They're still married, so there's that.
That was
There's
good.
that, yeah.
You know, like I said, there's been a few. There's been a few. So yeah.
Oh, I love it.
All right. So as Kent would say, let's do some final thoughts. We'll go around. Let's start with Noah. Any final thoughts for our listening audience or something you want to share?
But yeah, I just really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you guys. You know, the biggest thing, and the takeaway that I've had from the 30 years that I've been doing this as a teacher is, one, I just love teaching, but two, I'm just very grateful for the experiences I've had so far, and just it's been such a whirlwind. Like, it's just been so fast, you know. But I'm looking forward to more down the road. That's for sure. And I appreciate you all having me on, and I'll continue to be a fan.
Yay!
All right. And JP?
Yeah, I want to thank Noah for rescheduling, first of all, because he did have this scheduled for midnight my time. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to make it. But he rescheduled for May 4th, Star Trek Live Long and Prosper Day. And so thank you so much for coming on and rescheduling and sharing your story. I think it's very inspirational for those of us out there considering, you know, thinking, is this for me? Should I try it? You make a good point. It's 2 years. Try 2 years, see what it's like. If you love it, you might go for another year, but you're not moving your entire existence and everything for the rest of your life if you don't want to. So try 2 years. Anyone can do it. Greg?
I'll finally say a few thoughts here. I thank you so much, Noah, for being on here. Ever since even 2021, you've been one of our fans and an avid listener. We appreciate it. I love all of these ideas that you have to share with the teachers coming onto the show and listening. So you have so much to offer, and I wish you really well in your next country, right? And I want to just say thank you for Noah. He is teaching in Pakistan, and he's on his way with his wife and family to another school after another year. After over 25 years overseas, it's fantastic to hear from you. Thank you.
And if any other further first-time guests want to come back from first season, second season, you know, I'd love to meet you. I'm a big fan of listening to your episodes as well. So who knows? We might get more reunions.
And that's JP Mint. Jacqueline is from JP Mint Consulting. You can find her online at jpmintconsulting.com.
Thank you.
You can find Noah somewhere in Pakistan, but he's probably not going to be with his son because his son's still waiting in line somewhere. And you can find me not in Kent's room 303, but I'll be in room 107 if you need to find me. And we will see you on our next show. Thank you very much.
Woo!
Hey, see, I'm not very good at the ending. He's so good at it.